Let's do a scenario today. So we're in a position where we make $40,000 a year and we have $4,000 in credit card debt that we've built up, and we want to figure out how to pay that off. I'm going to show you a spreadsheet that we teach at Cheatkeeper Academy to model this out. So let's bring up the spreadsheet. So to get started, I just want to go through the scenario we have in front of us. In the top left, you can see we have our paycheck, and we're making $1,225 per paycheck. I assumed $40,000 a year gross income, like we talked about, assumes we're not doing 401k deductions right now, and we're just going to go right after the debt. So we're going to use any income that we have to pay off that debt as quickly as we can. We've got $1,500 in rent, which is probably around average for a one-bedroom apartment somewhere in the US. We've got a $420 car payment, and I assumed that we've got a car that's valued at about $20,000 with a 60-month term, a 12% interest on loan. Car insurance, I went with an average for somebody that hasn't crashed their car a lot, about $200 a month. Of course, that's going to vary depending on where you live. A cell phone, we went with like a Cricket or Boost Mobile here and got to $40 a month. Electric bill, $100. I'm assuming water and trash are paid for by the apartment complex here. And I know that's going to vary season to season depending on where you live. You can actually plug in different numbers into the spreadsheet so there's seasonality to it. We're not putting anything in savings right now. Our credit card, we're going to pay $60 a paycheck to start this out. So we're not just going to do the monthly bill. We're going to try and pay a little out of every paycheck to that credit card. This is cutting it close because with $4,000 of debt, $60 a paycheck, call it $120 a month with a bi-weekly check, is going to get you really close probably to what the minimum payment will be for that card. So you can't go much lower than that. And then we've got $130 here for food, gas, and entertainment. That's $130 per paycheck. I know that's tight. Stick with me and we're going to talk about it some more. I don't have any irregular expected expenses here. I know human beings have them. I certainly have them. And those are things like maybe a birthday for somebody. Maybe you have an annual subscription like an Amazon Prime that you'd want to put in there. We're going to keep that blank for now. And for now, we're going to assume that anything that comes up, we've got to pay out of food, gas, and entertainment. And right here, our checking account's starting at $1,000. We have nothing in savings right now. And there's our credit card balance at $4,000. And it's an 18% APR, which is probably about right for most people right now in January of 2026. So the first thing I want to do here is scroll to the right on the timeline so I can see what's going to happen in the future with this exact scenario. If we use these exact numbers and we follow this plan, what's going to happen to the debt? So we want to look at line 1 where we see the dates, and we want to look at line 22 where we're going to see our credit card balance. And as I scroll right, watch the dates. Now we're in April, May, June, and watch the credit card balance come down as we pay this over time. But also watch that checking account balance in row 20. The checking account balance can't go below zero because that means you ran out of money. And as we scroll to the right, we don't go below zero. We get pretty close. Look, in this column here, we get to $220. We're getting pretty close to zero. And if we scroll right, the checking account stays positive. The debt is being paid off, and we're okay all the way out here till we get to, there it is. We pay it off in July of 2029. So 3+ years out, we finally see that credit card balance go from negative to positive. And of course, we'd stop paying it at that point. So we have some good news and some bad news here. The good news is if we follow this plan to the letter, we're going to pay it off in just over 3 years. I call it 3.5 years. The bad news is a couple things. One, this plan's really tough to follow, specifically because of row 16. If you look at 16, this food, gas, and entertainment number is $130. And all of us have different scenarios, and some have kids, some have other people that rely on them, and that's really tough to get by on for a 2-week pay period. We're talking about gas. For the car, we're talking about food, and at $130, we're not doing anything fun. We are just skimping where we can on groceries. That is zero for daycare. No trips to Chipotle. We're not talking about any DoorDash. We're not talking about a single Starbucks trip, and we're still really in a tough spot. If we have one tire go bad, or we have a dermatologist tell us we got a spot that we have to get burned off, or whatever the dermatologist does, that's an expensive one. Whatever it is that comes up, this budget gets blown. So that's a very tough scenario. If I scroll back all the way to the left, and then I change this discretionary number, say I change it from 130 to 140, and when I do this, watch the numbers to the right in row 16. I'm going to enter a new assumption, 140, and when I hit enter, all those numbers are going to change to 140. That's just how the spreadsheet's built. It's pretty neat because you can model out different assumptions quickly. When I do that, the problem is we're okay for now, but if I scroll to the right, I'm going to keep going. We get right there. In April of 2027, our checking account balance goes below zero, and it's going to do it more often now. We're going to see it again there in September of 2027. So what this is telling us is this plan wouldn't work. We would end up going negative in checking even if we stuck to this $140 per pay period, and that's already a very, very tight budget. So we have to. In other words, if we're at $40,000 a year in income, our paychecks are $1,225, our fixed expenses look like these up above. The only thing we can do is spend $130 per paycheck on food, gas, and entertainment. So it's going to be tight. So I want to look at the same scenario, but let's say we change some things. The big thing here obviously is rent, $1,500 a month, and the other big payment we have is the car payment and car insurance combined. Can we change any of that? Well, I don't want to touch the car right now. We could, and it's something I've done in the past. When I had to pay off a lot of debt, I ended up buying a little Ford Ranger. It was $4,500 and just drove that for a long time. I also think this can be dangerous because you get a car that's that inexpensive and you're going to have some maintenance issues and you're really going to have to budget more for a problem that could happen. And that's pretty scary because we don't have anything put away in savings right now. So I'm leaving the car alone here and I'm going to look at rent. Our rent is $1,500 a month, and it's tough to go less than that in a lot of places in the US. But I think if we put in the scenario that we're going to take on a roommate or we're going to move in with someone else, then you can take this $1,500 and say we split it. So when I put in $750, I'm going to hit enter and watch the rest of that rent to the right change to $750. And so now this is assuming for the rest of time that we're going to pay $750 a month. And when we do that, we freed up some money. So I'm going to do a couple other things here. First of all, I'm going to put more toward the credit card. I want to do $200 every paycheck toward the credit card now that we have that extra money. And I'm going to put $300 in here for food, gas, and entertainment every paycheck. I think that's more reasonable. It's still not going to be easy for a lot of people to get by on just $300 per paycheck, but at least it gives you some room. And maybe you could take some of that, put it towards savings if you want in this model. But it gives you some room for food, gas, and entertainment, to spend a little more on groceries, to have some padding for gas, and maybe occasionally spring for something that you like to do as a treat for yourself or your family. But I recognize that's still pretty tight. Now, if we do it this way, I'm going to do the same thing and scroll to the right and again watch the checking account and the credit card balance as we advance to the right to see what happens. We're not going under zero on our checking account, and that credit card balance is dropping a lot faster. And look what happens right here. This year, in November of 2026, we pay off that credit card debt. And we would stop paying it at that point. So then we'd have $1,700 in checking, and then we'd have all sorts of free income, an extra $200 per paycheck to put toward savings or whatever else you want. So this is just one scenario. I'm not saying that if you're in this position, you can do it this way. You might need to make some other types of changes. But the important takeaway here is that we've modeled out a scenario where we show that this is possible. We show exactly what we could do to make changes here to then make changes in the future. And this gives us what our finances are going to look like every step of the way, every paycheck between now and when that debt is paid off. And because of having that visibility, you can now make quick decisions. You can change all those assumptions and watch what happens in the future so you know your plan's going to work. And you also know if something you're doing right now just won't pan out. So if you like the spreadsheet and you want this exact one, I will leave a link to it in the description and the comments, and you can click on it and it'll copy it right to your Google Drive, and then you can play with it and change the assumptions and make the numbers more like your own. And please tell me, what did I miss here? What are some things that you need to pay for or that is different about your scenario that you'd like to see in future scenarios that we map out. If you put that in the comments, I can make another scenario like this and test it out with a scenario that's more like yours. And finally, if you like this content and you want to see more of it in your feed, just click like or subscribe and you'll see future scenarios like these. Thanks for watching.